What's up, everyone? So, you've turboed your stock Miata and everything's running nice and cool according to that stock water temperature gauge. So what could possibly go wrong, right? Well, unfortunately, like most other water temperature gauges from the factory, they're pretty dumb in the fact that the normal operating temperature range is extremely broad, so you could be overheated and not even know it. So we're going to fix that today by adding a Garage Star sandwich plate adapter that goes in between the thermostat and its housing, as well as an Innovate MTX water temperature gauge. Let's get to it. Alright, first thing we're going to do is just get the car in the air so we can drain the coolant. Next, you'll loosen this radiator drain plug right here. Now that we're done draining the coolant, we can lower the car. Alright, now we'll be removing the intake crossover tube as well as the associated breather lines and idle speed valve lines. Alright, next we'll remove this upper radiator hose and probably spill like 1 million gallons of coolant in the process. Just kidding. Well guys, here we are. Here's the thermostat housing. We're basically going to be installing the sandwich adapter right in between the outlet and then the thermostat housing right here. Alright, so all we have to do is remove two 12mm bolts that are holding this outlet onto the thermostat housing. Alright, next we'll pop the outlet off. And now would be a great time to replace the thermostat. Alright, at this point you should scrape off all the remaining gasket and gunk off the sealing surfaces. So that includes thermostat right here, and then this outlet cover right here. So you can see there's the gasket will just pull right off. Alright, so here's the Garage Star sandwich plate. As you can tell, it's going to go in between the thermostat and the outlet. And then you'll have a nice little threaded bung for your sensor. One thing you'll notice is if we're adding this plate here, are the stock bolts going to be long enough? The answer is no, but Garage Star does supply longer bolts with the kit, as you can see. As far as I know, the 1.8 Miatas have a stud on this side instead of a bolt, so I'm just going to remove that so that we could use the longer bolt instead. Alright, to back out that stud, you're going to want to put two bolts and tighten them against each other, and then loosen the innermost bolt. Garage Star also includes some new gaskets, which is pretty nifty. There's a plug installed in this port by default, just in case you don't have your sensor or anything yet, but since I already have it, I'm going to remove it. Remember to put some thread sealant. NPC threads do require some form of sealant. I'm using some Permatex high temperature. I'll link it in the description. Next, we're going to put the upper radiator hose back on. As you can see, we're probably going to have to trim it just a little bit since this spacer pushed out the outlet a little bit. Alright, now we'll get this intake crossover tube back on. Don't forget about your idle speed and breather hoses. Alright, next we're going to pick a spot to run the wire through the firewall into the cabin. And I see a nice little hole right there. It's also a good idea to add a rubber grommet inside of this hole just to protect the wire from rubbing against the firewall. And then slide your wire through. Then on this side you'll pull the wire through. I'm going to be installing my coolant gauge right here. So I'm going to take off this tombstone, which requires me to take off the center console first. I'll link up one of my previous vids where I rebuilt the shifter, which will cover how to remove the console. It's super easy. Alright, with that out of the way, we're just going to pop off this vent. I already popped off this one. And then remove the 2 screws, and then one right here. Okay, next I'm going to drill some holes in these vents just so I can pass the wires through. Now I have to get this wire that came through the firewall tucked back here into the HVAC area and into the vent. Alright, let's talk about the connections to the gauge real quick. So you have these 2 plugs right here, they're 4-pin. You have an out if you want to connect this gauge to a logger, and then in if you want to have a different source to display. In this case we're not going to use either. Then you have this 3-pin plug. This isn't used at all. And then you have this 2-pin plug. This is what's going to be connected to the output of our sensor, and then this black wire coming off of it is going to get grounded. Then you have the main ground, which is this black wire. Then you have the dimming wire, which is white. I'm not going to use any dimming functionality, so this will be grounded as well. And then you have our red wire, which is our 12-volt in. Alright, when you first get a Miata, you pretty much disable the door buzzer. So I'm going to utilize that harness. And it has a yellow-black wire going into it. And that's 12-volt switched on. So I'm going to use that. Now for the ground, you're just going to want to find a nice clean chassis ground to anchor this down to. I'm going to look for somewhere kind of close to the fuse box, but there should be a post somewhere over there. As far as getting the gauge inside of the vent, I found that one layer of electrical tape will help create a tighter seal. Don't overdo it, it doesn't take much. Alright, now that we have all of our wires ready to go, we're going to put our tombstone back on, bolt on the console, and attach it to the gauge. Looks pretty dank, doesn't it? Gotta have that JDM tilt. Alright, before we clean up the wires and start the car, let's just make sure the gauge powers on when we switch to ignition. Beautiful. We're going to hook up our coolant funnel and fill the radiator back up with coolant. Alright, all that's left to do is start the car and try it out. I will note that the Innovate gauge will register its low range of temperature, so 120, until the thermostat opens, so don't be alarmed if it sticks there for a while. Well guys, I feel like we're killing these small tasks lately. Thanks for joining me for the ride. If you're enjoying the content, press that like button and subscribe. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.